Who is in charge of you? Have you mastered your mindset? Is it working for you? Or is it kind of getting in your way? So that's what I'm talking about tonight. Hi, I'm Maryanne from One Life to Flourish, and welcome to Making the Leap, which is a show for people who are dreaming of leaving their job and creating the life that they want by having their own business. Now, if you, hi Jessica. If you know of someone who might be interested in the topic or in starting their own business, please invite them over by pressing the button. Now, also, we are going live into a few different pages, so just make sure that you're actually on My Time TV Live so that I can see your comments. Now, today is a little bit different. I'm starting at a later time, and I don't have a guest. I'm going to actually be doing a little bit of a presentation of something different, so we'll see how that works. I'm fine, Jessica. How are you today? Hope you're going well. All right, so I'm going to bring up the start of my presentation, and what I'm talking about today is actually 5 steps that I have used personally to actually master my mindset. And these steps are just kind of an amalgamation of different ideas and things like that that I've read about, that I've heard people talk about. So I'm just kind of presenting to you what I've actually used myself personally. So my kind of little amalgamation. All right, let me share my screen and hopefully this will all work well. All right, so welcome to Master Your Mindset, which is my 5 steps to creating success, whatever success means to you. All right, so, and we've got there a quote that I love: happiness depends on your mindset and your attitude. Definitely does. All right, so step 1 is a really important one, and this is to understand that you are not your thoughts. Now, this is where I got caught and kind of got caught up in a little bit of a cycle where, because I was thinking something, it felt like it should be true. Now, the fact is that all through our life, our mind is very active, and it basically, kind of adds some narration to everything that's happening, all the things that we're seeing. We'll have thoughts come and go, it'll pop in, pop out, sometimes it'll stay for a while. The unfortunate thing is, though, that it's often something that's a little bit negative in nature. So we kind of need to be a little bit of aware of the fact that all of those thoughts that are popping in and out are not us. They're just random things. And we'll talk a little bit about in the next step why they tend to be a bit negative. It's really important that we actually don't give up our control to these thoughts and actually attach too much of a significant meaning to them. They really are just transitory thoughts, and they are not you. So you kind of need to step back in a way and act as a witness to your thoughts. And in some ways, it's almost like think judge and jury. And we'll talk about this in other steps as well as we go through. But you also need to kind of challenge them and investigate them a little bit. So you actually create power when you are actually choosing the thoughts that you focus on. All right, so that's step 1. You are not your thoughts. Really important. If you get that sorted, then you're actually a long way towards mastering your mindset. All right, so this is a quote from Eckhart Tolle, who has done a lot of work around mindfulness, and mindfulness comes into play with managing your mindset as well. So rather than being your thoughts and emotions, be the awareness behind them. All right, so that's kind of what we've been talking about. All right, so step 2 is be a negative thought catcher. So why is it that we actually have so many negative thoughts? Well, it seems that this is basically going back to our ancient ancestors who actually needed to have a negative bias to save them. So think about the idea of the carrot, the reward, and the stick, the punishment. If our ancient ancestors had focused on the carrot, all of the, the really good things, then they may not have seen, the tiger creeping up behind them, ready to make them into their lunch. So basically, they developed this bias where they were always looking around for things that might be a problem for them, things that were going to be like their stick. Now, we have not removed that idea, even though nowadays we don't have, tigers or mammoths or whatever, I don't know, whatever was in their way, any kind of danger, we don't have the same kind of need that they did, but it's still in place in our brain. And this means that it's really hard to actually override our negative thoughts. So this is the bad side of the whole mindset thing and mastering our mindset. So, bad experiences actually create a stronger effect on our brain, and they actually work to focus your attention onto negative things. So what researchers have found is that it's your focus and your attention that's used as the filters for your mind. So it almost becomes like a negative cycle. So that the mind is feeding us these thoughts that tend to be negative, which then means that it tends to let us focus our attention on things that are negative, and it just kind of goes into a cycle. So we're being a negative thought catcher to try and stop that. So step 2 is about actually being aware, or more aware, when our thoughts are turning negative, and just kind of catch them at that point. So we'll get to what this mantra is about in a moment, but I am not a caveman or woman, and this is not a tiger. Well, the picture actually is, but we'll talk about where this mantra fits into the whole thing. So for step 3, so basically we now know that we're not our thoughts. We now need to be aware of when our thoughts are turning towards the negative, having that negative bias. So we actually need to challenge those thoughts that are coming through as the next step. So it's not enough to just be aware of them. We then need to start to challenge them. So you can see it's just kind of a step-by-step thing. This is a very, very simple process, but very powerful, and not as easy as it seems. All right, so basically, because we are aware now that there is a negative bias, we're able to challenge it. And the way we challenge it is by starting to ask some questions around the negative things. So the first one, is this actually true? So remember that your mind is just basically narrating everything that's happening. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's just kind of popping those ideas in and out of your brain. So challenge it. Is this actually true, the thing that you're thinking about? Is there another way of looking at this? And in that sense, try and see if you can focus it around on something a little bit more positive. What's the evidence for what's coming in as your thoughts and your beliefs? Okay, those kinds of questions actually really help you to see whether it's a useful thought or if it is just this kind of negative narration that goes through our life. Remember, what's coming through is not necessarily reality. It's not necessarily our truth or the truth of the things going on around us. So this is where the mantra comes into it. So create a mantra, doesn't have to be this one, but create some kind of a mantra to say to yourself when you notice that you're thinking in a negative way and it's starting to make you doubt yourself, get down on yourself. So it's particularly those thoughts around, oh, I'm always a failure, I'm no good at this, I'll never succeed. All of those kinds of things are just thoughts that are popping into your head. Is it actually true? Is there another way of looking at this? And we'll look at that in step 4. What's the evidence? So are you always a failure? Is there nothing that you've ever succeeded at? All right, so challenge it and then put the mantra into place and say it a few times just to act as a little bit of a break on that thinking. So it could be, I'm not a caveman, this is not a tiger, or it could be something else entirely up to you, something that would fit with your way of looking and viewing things. All right. So once your mindset changes, everything on the outside will change along with it. So this is why I'm talking about changing your mindset, because if you can master your mindset, if you can manage that negativity bias, then the way that you go about things in your world changes. And that's what this quote is really talking about. So it presents us with many more opportunities in our life if we can actually, manage this negativity bias. All right, so the next step is actually to do some reframing. And this is the next step up from kind of the questioning and having our mantra there. This is where the power starts to come into it. So remember, our brain naturally heads towards the negative, and the negative is much more powerful than the positive. So we actually have to do a lot to, kind of work on defeating that tendency to believe everything that's negative. All right, so this is what reframing is about. Now, there's a lot of, probably not a lot, but there's a number of different things that we actually say to ourselves. I've just picked out 3 that seem to occur often for people, and I'm giving you an example of what you can do to reframe. So the first one is the all or nothing. So I kind of gave you a bit of an idea of that, like I always fail at stuff. I am a failure. That's your all or nothing kind of statement. So if you're getting into that as well as questioning it, is that really true? Then also remind yourself that nobody's perfect and it's okay not to be perfect. All right, and start to get that kind of language going. The next thing that we like to do is to personalize everything. Oh, that person over there doesn't like me because they've looked at me in such and such a way. Chances are they didn't really notice you at all, because we often see the world as us being like the center of it. And this is just, part of our egocentric view of the world. So we're not actually the center of the universe. And part of defeating this personalization where it's all about you is to remind yourself that it's not actually all about you. Okay, there's another way of looking at it. And once again, you can return to those questions. Think about, is this really true? Is that the only way of looking at it? So, if someone has made some comment and you think, oh, that means they don't like me, or, they're putting me down, is that really the best way to look at it? Could there be another meaning there? So just challenge yourself on that, okay? Not everything is about you, and quite often it's not. It's like the story of, someone having, some massive pimple or something on their face, and they feel like everywhere they go, the people are just staring at this massive pimple. And in fact, no one's noticed it except for you. But the way that we carry on, so it might be like, covering up the pimple and so on, mean that, slightly strange behavior is probably what draws the attention. But without us doing that, no one would really notice. They're too worried about themselves. All right, and the third one that's a fairly frequent one is magnifying, or could also sometimes be called catastrophizing, where we're making a mountain out of a molehill. So something that is, just the end of the world because something's happened. Well, kind of take a bit of a step back. Look at the big picture. Okay, is that really the case? Probably not. So you need to remind yourself, that it's important to put the whole thing into the big perspective. And the other thing is you have got the power to change whatever this is that's upsetting you and to do better often. So remind yourself of that. So reframing is a really powerful thing to do. It's just basically about reminding yourself of a different way of viewing something. All right. So, and on the reframing, don't worry about failure. Worry about the chances you miss when you don't even try. So, worrying or fear of failure is probably another thing that we can reframe quite easily, because failure is just about us not succeeding at that point, but learning so that we can actually create change in our lives. So, that's another kind of reframe that we've got there. All right, let's look at step number 5, which is my favorite one, which is all about building some positive habits. Now, so far, we've sort of seen the struggle that we have with trying to defeat those negative thoughts. Each of the things that we've done is going to help to change our perspective, but we still, again, probably going to find a little bit of a struggle with negativity coming through. So what researchers have found is that when we actually focus on positive goals, this is when we tend to have less of a focus on the negative. It starts to send the message to our mind that we are focusing on something that is positive and to show us more positive things. So it's at this point that the power really starts to arrive. So start by setting some big goals. So dream big. What do you really want? Where do you actually want to be in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years? You can pick the time frame. I usually do it in 1 to 5 years. And, I create like a massive vision for myself. This is what I am aiming to have in, say, 1 year. And I'll write it out in great detail, thinking about the things that I'm going to see, that I'm going to hear, what I'm going to be feeling, all of those kinds of things. And once I know where I want to go, then I work on breaking it down into some smaller steps. So if it's over a year, then I'll actually break it down into over 12 months. So what do I need to do in January to ensure that by December I've actually achieved that goal? And then what do I need to do next? And so on. So each monthly goal will still be fairly big. And that means that we then need to break it down even further. Because the fact is, if we've got something that seems too big and too overwhelming, we tend to just not start at all. So once you know what you want to do for the month, then try and break it down into some mini steps. So what might you need to do each day or each week that will actually help you to achieve the monthly goal? Okay, and then that monthly goal is going to help you to achieve the whole year goal. And once you know what those mini steps are, then you can actually work on turning them into the positive habits that you want. Now, for this part, this is where the real magic is, actually starting to develop your habits. And you start by going even smaller again into, there's a few different terms around for it, but think tiny habits. There's, I think there's been other people who've written about it, calling it mini habits, atomic habits. It's all basically the same idea. And it's all about what's the smallest thing that you can do that will give you some positive action. What can you attach that to that will help to drive you forward? So what's something that's already in place that will act as the signal to do that one little thing, and then how are you going to do it, and then celebrate. So it's kind of a little bit of a process. So you're going to have a start point, do the very tiny thing, and then go, yes, I feel great because it's done. All right, and as we do that, we actually start to quieten down so much of the negativity that's coming through. So we've really kind of mastered it. It's going to be there. We don't ever totally defeat it, which is why I've called this master your mindset rather than, defeat your mindset, because it is a constantly growing process. Now, the other thing I would say here is that there are ways that you can actually make bigger leaps and make them a little bit more easily than kind of going through this process. This process is great to put in place, but there are some tools around that can actually help you. And I suppose this is why I'm really passionate about this, because this is something that I've experienced for myself. And then because I experienced it for myself, I went and learned how to do it for other people. So what I'm talking about is hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming, where you can actually have an impact on how the mind is filtering your thoughts and kind of bypass your critical faculty, the part that sort of does all the judging and so on, to make change at the deeper level of your mind. So the fact that I'm actually here doing a broadcast is because I was able to go through a process that quieted down my inner critic, telling me that I, couldn't possibly do broadcasts, I couldn't possibly become visible, so that I was able to change that into something that kind of gives me excitement around doing this kind of thing, rather than, fear and avoidance. So it is entirely possible to make some big leaps, but you still need to work on just quieting down those negative ideas, that inner critic. So what else is possible? So if you are wanting more rapid results, and if you're wanting some support in building a more positive mindset more quickly, then I have got the Mindset Mastery program that can help you to achieve quick results in only 5 weeks. And this is a one-on-one coaching process, and it really can make a huge difference. If you've got something in particular that your inner critic is stopping you from doing, that comes up all the time, then this may be exactly what you need. So I have put some details in there if you would like to actually find out a little bit more. So thank you for joining me today, and hopefully you find these steps really helpful. They are quite easy to put into place, but as I said, you do have to keep on doing them. You do get to the point where it becomes almost second nature, but you do still need to keep going through that process. So thank you for joining me today, and next week Making the Leap will be back at the usual time of 4 o'clock, hopefully, and hopefully with a special guest in tow. But please enjoy your week and really have a go at kind of mastering that inner critic, mastering those negative thoughts. It is entirely possible. So bye for now.